So we'll be discussing a little bit in depth about network architecture and data components. What is client server architecture in brief? R3 database, R3 repository, custom data, application data, user data, master data. So we would not be going for these topics, R3 database, R3 repository, customer data, application data as of now. So those things comes post the installation. Maybe we'll be discussing only till R3 database. Okay. So the basically this is like typically understanding the setup, like to be in SAP you will be troubleshooting, you'll be integrating your SAP servers with various applications. It could be SAP, non-SAP, and you will be integrating your servers to access your server from outside network. So there's something called as SAP router. So in these kind of configurations you'll go through many tasks. So where you may have to talk to the network guys, you may have to talk to the Windows administrators and all. So SAP admin or a consultant is the one who is an application architect or is an application admin. In the sense, any issues at the network level or Windows level after crossing the database level, then it comes to SAP architect or SAP admin. So this person is supposed to have the minimum basic knowledge of admin related activities at OS level as well as network level. And if you have good knowledge, that's a really advantage. You can command and you can get the things done with the system admins and network admins, because you wouldn't give a chance to bluff you, like this is not the way and all. So that's the reason we have to go through certain basics. So your network architecture will be like this, and this is typically called as a your in your home networks you see work groups, but in a typical corporate networks you'll have a domain, like vsrinfotech.com or server1.vsrinfotech.com. vsrinfotech.com is my domain server or a DNS ADS server, Active Directory server, which acts as a server to maintain the local systems in your LAN. So you have some 100 computers. So I'm just giving you some, this is out of SAP basis topics, but still have some information on it. So that's called as a domain server or a DNS server, domain naming server, and we also call it as Active Directory server, where you have all your usernames and passwords created in that particular server. So if you're logging into some domain, what you'll do, you will log in, you'll give your domain name along with like your computer name. Before giving your username, you give the domain one slash your username, then password. So you'll have one username across your computers. You don't have to create users locally on your each system. So if you created one server, one username in your domain, with that particular username, you can log into any system, any server on your domain. So it's a centralized user administration, and a centralized mechanism for controlling access on all the systems. You put a policy like internet is not allowed. You don't have to go and block it on each system. You just block it in your DNS server. So your DNS IP will be linked to each server as a gateway. So what a requests are passing, that will be passing through your gateway server or your DNS server. Any doubts on this?
No, I'm good.
Okay, fine. So apart from this, like you'll have this server LAN. Srikanth, any doubts? You might be familiar with this already. So apart from
Yeah.
this server LAN,
Yeah.
you'll have a server LAN. So these are connected with the switches. We call them as switches. Like you do Google like switch, you'll get some 39, 50 ports of network cables where all the LANs which are coming to our laptops, desktops, it comes from a switch. A switch is a hardware device where it will have one incoming internet connection port or incoming LAN connection port, and from that, from one server or a domain name server, and from that it goes to all client systems. So that is called server switch or a LAN switch. We typically call it as LAN switch. In that we have, based on its speed and capability and configurations, we have layer 2, layer 3 switches. Layer 3 is kind of higher. Now we have more layer 3, high-end layer 3 switches for newer applications like HANA and all, which will have more data transfer rates. Like one switch might have 1 Gbps like upload and download limit. The other might have 10 Gbps. The high-end has 100 GB per second upload and download limit. So that's a hardware capability. So you'll have to control the access. You'll have a firewall or you have access control, ACS list or a firewall between your local systems and your servers, so that Even if someone is coming into this system without unauthorized access, or someone trying to, some foreign laptop is getting connected to your LAN port and you're trying to access, it will not authenticate it unless and until that computer is a part of your domain server or your domain network. So that's how you have a firewall restriction between your local computers, your local LAN and your server LAN. All these servers will be connected to a high-end switch because there will be data transfer within SAP application servers or other servers for better speed and better control, for better maintenance. So this is called server LAN and this is called front-end LANs. So typically, as a best practice, they use a separate switch for servers, separate switch for local computers, and so separate IP address series for servers and separate switch for network. So that if you are maintaining your network at your computers, for your computers, you are restarting your network and all, that will not affect your servers. Your servers maintenance will be elated and elevated. So this is a typical server form, how it looks with a failure concept. So you have servers with the layer 2 switches, SAP server LAN, only within the servers, layer 2 switch here, layer 2 switch here, and layer 3 for a backbone, higher switch as a backbone for server distribution layer. Like you, when you're having more multiple systems, if one switch fails, like this load will be taken by this switch. And similarly, the backbone is the one which is actually connected to your main MPLS line or main internet line. You'll have one internet of Airtel given to layer 1 switch and Tata given to one switch. So even if one network goes down, the other network automatically comes into picture. So this is like, maintaining the uptime of your systems, because your servers might being be used from anywhere or any part of the world. So if your net is down on your servers, they will not be in a position to access your servers from the wide area network. Locally, it will keep for working. So like this, like you have your backbone. So failure switches, either it is for internet or for within the LAN systems to work locally or globally. Any doubt so far? So this is only a
No.
graph, like, just understanding, like when you say we have a ring network, people keep saying, like, ring network or failure internet connections or failure switch and all. So if a net goes down, like, for typically you never see your VPN outages and all. In the worst case, honestly, only you see VPN switches. So your virtual private networks, everything will work with these kind of switch concepts, so that even if one network goes down, there will be one more network. So the companies will basically have two or more lines. Minimum two internet lines will be leased out for one company, so that at any point of time one goes down, the other will be there. And to be more effective, few companies take 3 lines, 4 lines. It depends on the company to company. But to have high availability internet connections, higher uptime of the LAN and WAN, you need to have two switches with the two internet connections, two service providers. So if the R3 servers are connected using switches, access to the individual servers has a high and constant bandwidth. The connection between two servers has a minimal delay time. So the advantage of having servers connected with a individual or a separate server switches is because to have better capability. Like you have your application servers, child servers sitting beside side by side. So if they are talking from the same switch, the transfer rate will be more and the delay time will be less. And eventually you'll have better performance, better speed. So you're putting a server, child server 1 here and child server 2 here and your main server here. So it has to travel all these ports, right? All these gateways and everything. So each server will have its own gateway or IP address. So that will create some network delay. So delay, to remove that, they'll have all the systems in organizing the network in this way. So this will allow you to this will help you in understanding or relating the issues, troubleshooting the issues when you have issues pertaining to network in respective to SAP systems. So therefore, you only need to connect the servers on an SAP system to each other with an individual network adapter and switch if there is extremely high throughput and the bandwidth requirements. For example, if throughput of the network adapter is not sufficient, see, basically, to have the high bandwidth and throughput. Throughput is what? Nothing but upload and download limit. Having the high bandwidth of throughput is nothing but having the high capacity of upload and download for communication between the networks. To have high throughput, they have put a separate server switch here for within these systems. Here we have not put it. So that is example is given here. Therefore, you only need to connect the servers of an SAP system to each other with an additional network adapter or a and switch if there is extremely high throughput and bandwidth requirements. If you want your servers to be running on a high requirement, like HANA, for example, you are putting HANA. HANA needs minimum of 10 Gbps switch, minimum of 10 Gbps switch, and HANA servers, the LAN capability comes with all the servers LANs are capable of 1 GB upload and download limit. LAN port I'm talking about, RJ45 port of HANA server. The normal servers is only 1 GB and your desktops is 100 Mbps. మనకి ఇక్కడ ల్యాన్ కి పెట్టి చూస్తే 100 Mbps అని చూపిస్తుంది మన ల్యాప్టాప్ అండ్ డెస్క్టాప్ కానీ. కానీ 100 Mbps స్పీడ్ ఇస్తుందని కాదు, దాని కెపాసిటీ అంత. ఇట్ కెన్ టేక్ అండ్ give up to 100 Mbps. For example, let me connect this LAN. Where is the LAN? ఇంకా అర్థమైందని చెప్పేది. Let's see. Anyways, change after settings. ఎక్కడి నుంచి వెళ్తారు దానికి? Here, right? Okay. So local area connection. If I say status, it says how much? 100 Mbps. It's not like I'm getting 100 Mbps speed. It is the limit of this LAN port. Similarly, the normal servers have 1 GB per second. Ante my laptop can take upload and download maximum of 100 MB per second. And what it is doing, it's only doing in bytes. It is sending maximum of 94 bytes and receiving maximum of 164 bytes. So that's the activity, just understanding the concepts, the capacity. So if you have, like, for example, if you're putting some HANA server or something like that, and you want to have high bandwidth requirements, like, the HANA requirement is you should have at least 10 Gbps bandwidth requirement. So for that case, what you have to do, at least within the servers, you need to have a 10 Gbps switch or 100 Gbps switch for servers to communicate within them. And you should have all these switches on at least 10 Gbps. So that's a requirement. That requirement comes from case to case. Understood so far? Network architecture. Yeah. So basically, you will understand, like, once we do installation, you will understand why we are going through network as well. So you will be creating RFC connections between ERP system, BW system, and integration. See, we were talking about integration. So we have talked about integration of different departments, right? So after installation, we will also discuss about integrating different SAP servers together. Okay. So then we will have this issues, like, while doing such kind of activities, we'll have this, but it's not really mandatory to know the network knowledge, but this will help you in troubleshooting the issues in certain areas. If you just update, if some network related issue error comes into picture, if you just take a screenshot and send it to network guy, they will fix it. But for if you understand better way the network also, you can ask them, man, there's something blocking with this particular gateway from this particular switch. Okay, it seems like there is a firewall blocking this port. So then they will directly go and check at the required thing that will make your work easy and the work of the network admin easy. This is like, understanding the things from the roots. Client server architecture, how the mechanism works in a hardware oriented view and a software oriented view. So you'll have a client system, your laptop, desktop, and you have your server, SAP server or some server. Like, it is a typical client server architecture. So both the systems, they get connected and exchange the data with LAN and WAN. So any disconnection in this or any issues in this, you will not be able to have users won't be able to connect it to the server. So he might be connecting with a local area network or a wide area network over the internet. This is on a hardware level. So what is the software level? You are looking at the things. Client will send a request, process 1 will send a request of service to the server. Server will process it and provision of service. It will give the front end request. Whatever process or a request came from the client system, it will process it and it will give the output to the customer or a client system on a laptop, desktop, or a mobile or smartphones. That's a software oriented view. What is client server architecture? So client server architecture in a hardware level, the client and server will be communicating with a LAN and WAN, and in a software oriented level, the client system will send a request. The user will send a request from a client system, and it will go to the server. Server will process the data, and it will give you the output of the information or the end result. So this you might have a question: what is client server architecture? For better understanding in a simple way, you'll have these slides detailed with examples and all in a TADM guides. But simply put it like this. This is the best answer. Again, we came to R3 database repositories. Huh? Okay. So with this slide again, we'll stop it here. So an SAP R3 system database. So yesterday we have seen dispatcher. So what is the central instance? Central instance is the one which comes with NQ process. Do we have a central and dialog instances here from the picture? We have only central instance here in this picture. We don't have additional servers or child servers. So we are looking at a whole, like trying to understand how the communication works. So the systems people will give the information or a message from SAP GUI, and it will comes to dispatcher. Dispatcher will queue it. It has to go to gateway or background or update or spool server or NQ server. And from there it goes to database server, it updates it data, and again it will give back to dialog. From it dialog it will go back to front end user with the help of dispatcher. So here also you'll have a dialog mechanism. So see here dialog DIAG. After dispatcher also you'll have dialog mechanism. So from between dispatcher and SAP GUI you have only dialog work processes working, and only again after between dispatcher and databases you'll have again dialog, update, NQ, spool, everything. So spool will do this print job and it will update to dispatcher, and the output will be again sent back to user with the help of dialog work processes. And if you have additional servers, that will be managed by message server. So load balancing. It will see if all dialogues are filled here. It will ping to message server, and message server will alert. This child server 1 is free. The data will be sent to that. And similarly the gateway. Any doubts so far? And this dispatcher mechanism, the R3 architecture dispatcher mechanism, will be same irrespective of whatever database you're using in the backend. Oracle, Informax, DB2, MS SQL, MaxDB, HANA, any database it could be. But it will be still the same. Any doubts? Hello?
No, I
Okay.
think I'm good.
Okay. So this is about the dispatcher mechanism. This is the main mechanism that will be worked out in terms of, and all the troubleshooting, the parameters, everything is related to this one only, like high availability. So while installing, we'll see, when you're installing installation itself, you'll have a central system installation. So what it does is it will install the central instance and the database in the same box. Okay, and when you want to have a high availability, you can have distributed, you can have SAP on one box and you can have database on one box. That is in a distributed method. You'll have two system installation. And additionally something like you run the same tool again and you say additional dialog instance, then it will ask you for the parent server details, and we'll see all these scenarios. Okay, basically we need to have two or more systems for distributed, but I'll cover those as well. Like once you are done with central system installation, after you practice the central system installation, I'll also show how the actually distributed and other things work. Okay.
So when you say system, is it like a server?
Yeah, server, yes.
Okay.
Typically it resembles server, yes. Okay, so what we do, so tomorrow we'll stop the class tomorrow. Is that fine?
Yeah.
And